What is up, guys? So Warner Brothers recently released the 7th movie in the DC Extended Universe called Shazam, and since there is not another movie coming out in the DCEU for almost a year after this, with Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of Harley Quinn, which is a very stupid name for a movie, but I thought this is a great time to rank all 7 movies since there's not another one coming out for a very long time. So the way I will do this is a pretty standard ranking. I'll go through each movie from worst to best, explain what I do and don't like about it, give it a score, and then move on to the next one until we get to number 1. So the movies obviously are in order of release: Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, Justice League, Aquaman, and the most recent movie, Shazam. So with all that in mind, let's rank all of these movies from worst to best. 7th place is Suicide Squad, which right off the bat, right when they were releasing it, I knew that there would be some problem here because it's a Suicide Squad movie and it's only the 3rd movie in this universe. It feels like they really rushed to this movie. It doesn't really feel like they placed it in the right point in the DCU, which probably should have been after Justice League or after they already had a couple movies where they set up these characters. Like, this could have been a Flash movie, a Cyborg movie, an Aquaman movie, or even a Green Lantern movie if they were going to use Green Lantern. Suicide Squad doesn't really further anything in this universe, and that led to also Justice League also feeling a little bit rushed, and I'll get to Justice League in a second. But Suicide Squad, I think, has a pretty stupid story where they just put together a band of villains, and the one of them goes bad, obviously, and that's kind of predictable, and then they all have to stop her. That's really the entirety of the movie, and that's definitely not a very good story. The characters are somewhat good, like Deadshot and Captain Boomerang. I like those two quite a lot. Amanda Waller is a good version of Amanda Waller. I never liked Harley Quinn, but this version of Harley Quinn is definitely not a bad one. But outside of the characters, I mean, the visuals are kind of not great in this movie. The villain in Enchantress and her brother, they really suck. This version of the Joker is so incredibly disappointing. It does have some fun moments, but in the end, Suicide Squad is definitely the worst movie in this universe, and I'll give it a 5.3 out of 10.
Shall we?
Number 6 is Justice League, and it really sucks that Justice League is so low on the list, but that is the reality of the situation. This movie brings together a couple superheroes. Only 2 of them really had their own movies in Superman and Wonder Woman, while Batman was kind of the starring role of his own movie, but Superman and Wonder Woman were also there as well. And then there's Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg that didn't get any setup at all, except for like these one or 2 cameos before, and I don't think that's a good way to set up this Justice League. I think maybe one character can debut in this movie or be subtly set up in a different movie, but having the Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg all set up in this one movie definitely did not help the movie at all. There's also the fact that the villain kind of sucks. I mean, the visuals also are really bad. The whole movie feels very rushed, and the best character in the previous movie, Batman vs. Superman, which is Batman, although he did kill, everything outside of that, he was awesome. I think in this movie, in Justice League, he was completely neutered, and he kind of sucked, and even his costume sucked as well. So this movie definitely didn't do very much good at all. There are some fun moments, and I did get out of the movie feeling like I enjoyed it, but for the most part, it is pretty bad, and I'll give it a 6 out of 10.
Tell me, do you bleed? You will.
Number 5 is Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. So again, the story here is kind of stupid. The reason that Batman and Superman are fighting is never really fully explained, or if it is, it's not explained very well, and it feels very manufactured. I do like this version of Batman quite a lot. I think Ben Affleck did a great job in the role, minus the killing. He was pretty awesome, but the fact that he was killing was so ridiculous for the character. But there were some awesome and some bad characters. The villains were pretty bad in Lex Luthor and Doomsday. Those guys definitely did not help the movie at all. The fact that they screwed up Lex Luthor is kind of terrible. I mean, it's not that hard to do a good Lex Luthor because he lends himself to be so good. I mean, even Supergirl is doing a good one right now, so I mean, it's kind of embarrassing that they screwed up Lex Luthor and the Joker so incredibly badly in this universe. But this movie does have some okay visuals. There is one incredible action scene with the Batman warehouse fight scene, and I also do like the Batman vs. Superman fight scene, but it is way too short short, and there is really no point to it in the end. And also the Martha scene is kind of stupid, so the action scenes are not bad for the most part. There's one good one, but the one at the end with Doomsday is really, really bad, and the fact they killed off Superman in his second movie, it felt so flat. It fell so flat in that moment. But I do think that this movie felt a little rushed, just like Justice League and just like Suicide Squad as well, and that because of that, it did fall a little flat. So I'll give it a 6.7 out of 10.
Out.
Excuse me.
Number 4 is Man of Steel. So this movie does have a pretty good story, in my opinion. This version of Superman is definitely a little bit darker than the typical Superman, which I don't really like at all. I don't think many people like either. I did initially like it when it came out, but now that I got to be more familiar with what Superman should be, I do think that this is not a good version of the character. He did become more like Superman in Justice League, which I do appreciate, but that's really my only problem with this movie. And also, obviously, the big fight scene at the end is very destructive, and it doesn't need to be, but I do think this movie has a pretty good story, a pretty good villain, and some great visuals as well. It's a pretty good origin story for a too dark Superman, and also on top of that, it does have a pretty incredible score, so I'll give Man of Steel a 7.9 out of 10. Number 3 is Wonder Woman, a movie that definitely starts off really, really strong, but doesn't really end up strong in the end. I think the first 2 acts of this movie are really good, like with a great story, some great characters in Steve and Diana, incredible visuals, and pretty awesome action scenes, as well as a pretty good score. And in general, it's a great origin story for Wonder Woman, but the 3rd act completely ruins it with a terrible, terrible final fight with just a gray monster and a horrible, horrible villain. And the 3rd act kind of ruins the message of the movie as well. It definitely starts very strong, but ends pretty horribly, going from a great movie to just a good movie because of the 3rd act. So I will give Wonder Woman an 8 out of 10.
You're dead.
Sorry about your window, but you're welcome for not getting robbed. Oh, hey, what's up? I'm a superhero.
Number 2 is the latest addition to the DC Extended Universe in Shazam. So Shazam, I think, has an incredible origin story for the main character. It's definitely the best origin story in the universe so far. It's very, very funny. It's one of the funniest superhero movies I have ever seen. It's very heartfelt as well. It has a great use of the universe that it takes place in, way better than any of the other 6 movies on this list. And the villain also is a lot better than most villains in this universe, despite not being a very famous villain from the comics like Lex Luthor and the Joker. The one part where this movie doesn't do well, I think, are the visuals and the action, but that definitely doesn't really take away much from it because they weren't really going for a very big budget, visually pleasing, action-packed movie. They were going for a more heartfelt, hilarious movie with some great characters, and this movie definitely has some incredible characters. The brotherly rivalry and the friendship between Billy Batson and Freddie Freeman is probably the best part of the movie. It's so much fun in this movie, and I think the 2 kid actors do an incredible job in the role despite being kids, and in the end, Shazam basically does and accomplishes everything that it is trying to do. It's just that the action and the visuals are not really on par with what I would expect from a high-budget superhero movie, but also on top of that, there are some great horror scenes that are genuinely freaky, and you'll see that if you have seen the movie, or if you haven't, you should definitely check it out. So I'll give Shazam a 9.2 out of 10.
But what could be greater than a king?
A hero.
Number 1 is Aquaman. So when I went into this movie, I wasn't really expecting much. I think the trailers looked okay, but not great, and I didn't really like Aquaman that much in the Justice League movie, but this movie blew my expectations out of the water, pun intended. I thought it kind of blew me away. The story was so good. I mean, the hero's journey of Aquaman in this movie is so satisfying in the end when he walks out of the waterfall in the movie. Because of the music, because of his costume, because of everything building up to that moment, it's so incredibly satisfying, and in that moment I realized that this movie was really, really good. I think the visuals are, again, also what make this movie. It's got so much better visuals and unique visuals than any other superhero movie I have seen in the past, and I think it's also the most comic book accurate movie ever in terms of the costumes, like Aquaman's costume and Black Manta's costume and Ocean Master's costume. Somehow they make all three of those ridiculous, stupid costumes, they make all three of them work so well in this world and in this movie. I think that, again, the action's great, the fight scenes and the visuals are great, the awesome hero's journey is definitely what makes the movie, and on top of that, I think it's got the best score, the best music in this universe ever. I still listen to some of the music from this movie. It is that good. I also really like Mera's character, and I really like the romance between Aquaman and Mera in this movie. There's really not much this movie does poorly. There are some scenes that are, like, the acting isn't great, especially like in the flashbacks when Arthur was a teenager, but I don't think that takes away much from the movie in the end. So Aquaman is easily my favorite movie in this universe. It made me love Aquaman as a superhero and as a character, and I'm really hoping it's not the last awesome movie in this universe. In fact, it already isn't, because Shazam is pretty awesome. I'm hoping this universe can continue to surprise me, like with movies like Aquaman and Shazam. So for Aquaman, I will give it a 9.5 out of 10. But let me know what your list is in the comments down below. What would you give each one of these movies, and what is the order you would put them in for this list? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.